Hello everyone. Tonight we are going to dive headfirst into something you probably take for granted every single day. The simple act of going to bed. You might picture soft sheets, a quiet room, maybe a gentle fan humming in the background. But what if I told you that the very concept of bedtime as we know it, a time for peaceful, uninterrupted rest, is a relatively new invention? You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan, and play some soft background music, and let's get started tonight. You open your eyes not to the gentle glow of a bedside lamp, but to the jarring sounds of yelling chickens and a baby crying somewhere down the hall. Congratulations, you've just woken up in a Roman insula, the ancient version of an apartment building. Think of it as a multi-story death trap, held together with dust, prayer, and very questionable architecture. You're likely living on the third or fourth floor, which is bad news. The higher the floor, the poorer the tenant, and the more likely your ceiling collapses when someone spills olive oil above you. Your room is tiny, no bigger than a walk-in closet, with stone walls that sweat in summer and freeze in winter. There's no window, just a small hole that lets in air, smoke, and the occasional pigeon. Your mattress, if you can call it that, is stuffed with straw and lice. The blanket smells like damp wool and regret. There's no furniture, no decorations, and certainly no kitchen. Cooking inside is strictly forbidden. A small fire could ignite the whole building, and fire codes haven't been invented yet. Your only possessions are a clay cup, a worn-out tunic, and maybe a wooden comb if you're feeling fancy. And the toilet? Oh, there isn't one. Not in your room, not in your building. Your chamber pot sits silently judging you in the corner. You'll have to carry it down narrow, rickety stairs to empty it into the street gutter, hopefully without slipping and adding your body to the morning offerings. Historians still debate the exact methods of waste disposal for the poorest Romans, but it definitely involved a lot of outdoor adventures. The walls are paper thin, so you hear everything. Your neighbor praying, coughing, arguing with his wife, and unfortunately, not arguing with his wife, if you catch my drift. The air is heavy with smoke, mildew, and the distinct perfume of unwashed humanity. Someone's already baking bread downstairs, but you're not invited. Street vendors are yelling prices for figs and fish guts. A distant centurion is barking orders at someone who's probably already bleeding. You're not even out the door yet, and you're sweating, itchy, and possibly inhaling lead dust from the plumbing. Welcome to the Roman workday. You're not an emperor. You're not a gladiator. You're just another poor soul in an overcrowded tenement, trying not to fall down the stairs or anger a city god before noon, and you've still got 23 hours to go. This humble beginning sets the stage for a day of relentless discomfort and minimal respite, a far cry from the modern concept of ease and personal space. Now that you've survived the climb down the crooked stairs of your insula, it's time to address the second most urgent matter of the morning, your bladder. There's no bathroom in your apartment, of course, no sink, no flush, not even a bucket with dignity. Instead, you shuffle down the street, chamber pot in one hand, modesty in the other, toward the nearest latrina, Rome's version of a public restroom. And calling it public is generous. It's a social club for strangers who don't mind making eye contact while doing their business. You arrive to find a long stone bench with holes cut into it. Beneath the bench, a shallow trough flows with water, just enough to carry away the collective shame of the city's lower classes. You sit if you dare, and hope the person beside you doesn't want to chat. Privacy? Not a thing. Doors? Absolutely not. People treat it like a town square, with extra acoustics. Businessmen discuss grain prices while squatting. A retired soldier talks about his sciatica. Meanwhile, you're just trying not to look directly across from you, where another man is chewing olives and not breaking eye contact. It's a truly strange detail, this forced intimacy in an otherwise impersonal world. Then comes the real treat, the tersorium. It's a communal sponge on a stick, kept in a bucket of vinegar or salt water. In theory, you rinse it before use. In practice, well, let's just say the sponge has seen things, unspeakable things. You wipe hesitantly and hope the vinegar did its job. If you're feeling lucky, maybe you brought your own rag. If you're feeling rich, maybe some moss. But chances are, you just used what everyone else used and now carry the quiet shame of shared hygiene. And if you think you can skip this ritual by going in an alley, think again. Public urination laws exist, fines are real, and Roman law enforcement is not known for subtle warnings. Once you're done, you wash your hands. Wait, no, you don't. There's no soap, no running water, just a rinse from the communal basin that's seen more fingers than a handshake competition. You leave the latrina feeling lighter and slightly more dead inside. But hey, that's Rome. Historians still debate the true effectiveness of these public latrines in preventing disease, given the communal nature of the cleaning implements and the lack of proper hand-washing facilities. It was certainly a step up from no plumbing at all, but only just. This daily ritual highlights the vast differences in what constitutes normal hygiene across time periods. You're learning fast that comfort and personal boundaries are modern luxuries. So you've done your morning business and managed not to fall into a gutter or get arrested. Impressive. Now it's time for breakfast. The most important meal of the day, unless you're Roman, in which case it's more of a polite formality before work and misery. Welcome to the entaculum, a Roman morning feast that consists of precisely two things: stale bread and watered down wine. Sometimes there's cheese, sometimes there are olives, but mostly there's just disappointment. Forget about coffee, the Romans didn't have it. No eggs, no bacon, no pancakes, and certainly no oat milk lattes. Breakfast is not meant to be satisfying. It's meant to not kill you. Your bread is likely panis rusticus, a rough, chewy lump of grain and grit, baked yesterday or the day before. It's dense enough to qualify as a weapon and textured like limestone. The wine is diluted because even they knew that being drunk before sunrise in ancient Rome was a bad idea, unless you were a senator, in which case it was probably just called Tuesday. Historians still debate the nutritional value of the Roman diet for the average citizen, but it's clear that calories were prioritized over culinary delight. There's no kitchen in your apartment, so you eat this meal standing in the street or squatting beside a fountain, alongside other equally unenthused citizens, gnawing on bread like flavorless tree bark. If you've got a bit of oil or a smear of Garum Rome's famously salty fermented fish sauce, then congratulations, you've added aromatic horror to your already bleak meal. Remember that crocodile poop sunscreen? Yeah, this is worse. If you're wealthy, maybe you get fruit or honey, but you're not. You're a normal Roman citizen, just rich enough to not be enslaved, and just poor enough to envy your neighbor's broken jug of goat milk. Sometimes vendors walk by selling hot chickpea fritters or honeyed pastries, and for a moment you feel hope. But you remember, your coin pouch is emptier than a gladiator's sympathy. So you bite your bread and pretend it's cake. This is how the day starts, with carbs, mild dehydration, and a growing realization that you're about to walk 7 miles on Roman sandals with nothing but stale crumbs in your stomach and a buzz from last night's leftover wine. It doesn't get better because now it's time to go to work. This brief and unsatisfying meal underscores the daily struggle for survival, where sustenance is merely a means to an end, not a moment of enjoyment. After your hearty breakfast of bread and mild despair, it's time to face the Roman workday. And let's be clear, unless you're a senator, a poet with a patron, or one of the lucky few who inherited land from a dead uncle with no heirs, you are working, and you're doing it hard. You might be a laborer, a porter, a potter, a bricklayer, a street cleaner, or, if your luck's truly sour, a sewer worker. Rome needs a lot of things: roads, aqueducts, temples, baths, and someone has to build them. That someone is you, with your bare hands, under the sun, wearing sandals that provide all the arch support of a soggy leaf. The Roman workday starts early, very early. The sun is barely up, but the foreman is already yelling in Latin and waving a stick. If you're late, you risk losing a day's pay, or worse, being beaten, shamed, or fired, which in Roman terms means you starve with honor. Your tools are basic. You dig with a shovel made of splinters and prayer, carry bricks on your back, and haul water from a cistern that smells like old socks and ambition. There are no gloves, no helmets, just sweat, dust, and the constant awareness that one slip might crush your spine and your career simultaneously. If you're a craftsman, good luck. You're competing with hundreds of others selling the same clay pots, sandals, or cheap tunics. Underpricing is common, and quality doesn't matter if a richer citizen decides he doesn't like your face. Even more elevated jobs like messenger, accountant, or teacher aren't glamorous. You're either running through Rome's chaotic streets with scrolls under your arm, writing numbers for someone who will forget your name, or trying to teach Latin to a group of senators' children who already think they're gods. What a strange detail, that even the privileged jobs have their own forms of indignity. Women? They're working too. Spinning, weaving, selling vegetables, or managing stalls in the markets. Plus raising children, plus managing the household, plus not dying during childbirth, multitasking before it was cool. Historians still debate the full extent of women's roles in the Roman economy, but it's clear they were vital to daily life. And after all this, you get a short break for lunch, maybe if your supervisor isn't in a bad mood or trying to impress a visiting prefect. So yes, you work or you die trying. Rome may be eternal, but your back won't be. Every muscle aches. Every joint groans a silent protest. So you've made it through the morning without fainting or being flogged. Now it's time to navigate the ancient Roman street, a chaotic, crowded gauntlet designed by someone who clearly hated personal space and public health. Picture it. The sun's high, the city's buzzing, and the street is alive not in a poetic way, in a literal way. Rats, flies, stray dogs, livestock, beggars, merchants, yelling in 6 languages, children running wild, thieves pretending to help old ladies while pocketing your coin purse. It's like Times Square, if Times Square had no plumbing and everyone was carrying a goat. Let's talk infrastructure. Roman roads were engineering marvels, perfectly straight, masterfully paved, and usually overflowing, with a blend of urine, spilled wine, vomit, animal waste, and the remains of last night's garum sauce. The middle of the street functions as an open sewer. Step off the raised footpath without looking, and congratulations, you've just baptized your sandal in the holy waters of human misery. Wagons clatter by with no speed limits, no crosswalks, and zero chill. They don't stop for pedestrians. In fact, Roman law actually banned heavy cart traffic during the day in the city, which means drivers race through at night in the dark without brakes, like charioteers on a deadline. If you're not crushed by wheels, you'll be bumped by elbows, baskets, or an angry fishmonger shouting about spoiled eels. Then there's the air, thick with smoke from cooking fires, incense from temples, and the scent of public latrines wafting on the breeze. Oh, and dead animals. Sometimes people just leave them there. If a dog drops in the forum, someone might just toss a cloth over it and walk away. And don't forget public spectacles, spontaneous brawls, impromptu protests, or a politician's parade that blocks traffic for hours while trumpet players blast off key fanfare in your face. It's a strange and chaotic detail how much public life unfolded directly in the streets with little regard for order or sanitation. So yes, the Roman street is alive and out to get you. Slip on a fig, get hit with a runaway cart, or accidentally offend a patrician's pet monkey, and your day could end faster than Caesar on the Ides of March, and you were just trying to go buy lentils. Historians still debate the effectiveness of Roman urban planning in managing such high population densities and the resulting public health challenges. The sensory overload is immense. Your ears ring with shouts, your nose wrinkles at the smells, and your eyes dart constantly, trying to avoid stepping in something truly regrettable. This is not the leisurely stroll you might take in a modern city park. You're sweaty, dusty, and desperately craving a splash of something cold. The good news? You live in Rome, a city renowned for its aqueducts, those magnificent engineering marvels that carry fresh water from the hills straight into the heart of the empire. The bad news? That water doesn't care about you unless you're wealthy enough to live in a domus with your own private fountain. You're sharing water with thousands of your closest coughing, sneezing, not washing their hands neighbors. Your options are the public fountains, where everyone fills their jars, washes their feet, and occasionally dunks a child for fun or hygiene. And by hygiene, we mean a wet version of hope. If you want to wash up, your best option is the thermae, the Roman public baths. They're everywhere, and everyone uses them. Sounds civilized, right? But here's the thing. The water cycles through multiple pools with no soap, no chlorine, and very little shame. You'll be sitting in a tepid bath with a dozen other men, none of whom believe in modesty. Conversations are loud, political, and occasionally naked. A man might try to sell you socks while another cleans his ears with a stick. And the water? It's been through everyone. If you were hoping to feel clean, think again. You're marinating in bacteria with a hint of eucalyptus. Also, fun fact, the plumbing system often uses lead pipes. Yes, lead. Romans were obsessed with engineering, but not chemistry. Over time, that convenient indoor plumbing could cause all kinds of delightful side effects, like anemia, gout, infertility, and, if you're truly lucky, madness. It's a strange detail that their advanced water system came with such a hidden, long-term cost. Want to drink something safer? Wine. Seriously. Water is viewed with suspicion, especially in the poorer districts where contamination from latrines and street runoff is common. So wine is diluted and consumed throughout the day by men, women, and children alike. Because what better way to survive a crumbling empire than with a gentle buzz? Historians still debate the full impact of lead poisoning on the Roman population, but its presence in their daily water supply is undeniable. So yes, Rome brought water into the city before most of the world knew what a pipe was. But for the average citizen, it's a gamble every time you drink, bathe, or rinse your toes. Enjoy your aqueducts, just don't trust them. Your body feels perpetually grimy, and the promise of a clean bath is just that, a promise, rarely fulfilled in a way that truly refreshes. Welcome to the Roman Empire, where pain isn't just a possibility, it's the background music of your entire life. You stub your toe? No ice, no painkillers. You grit your teeth and keep going until it either heals wrong or falls off. Break a bone? You wrap it in a dirty rag and try not to breathe too hard. Get a splinter? Good luck. That's how infections start and how you might end. Roman society isn't big on comfort. There are no ergonomic tools, no padded seats, no concept of taking it easy. If you're a laborer, you're lifting bricks with a hernia and a prayer. If you're a soldier, you the 20th of March miles a day with bleeding feet and a scorpion bite on your thigh. If you're a woman in childbirth, well, welcome to agony. Your midwife might know a chant, and that's about it. Every part of your body is one misstep away from becoming an open wound or a cautionary tale. And unless you live near a temple with a very dedicated priest, your best option is homemade ointments, herbal smoke, or simply ignoring the problem until it resolves itself or you get resolved into a grave. There's no such thing as anesthesia. Surgeries are performed while you scream into a block of wood. Dislocated shoulder? It's popped back in by a man named Marcus who learned from watching someone else fail at it. Dental work? Picture a blacksmith. Now picture your mouth. That's the scene. And if you're enslaved or poor, people don't even pretend to care. You could be bleeding out on the side of the road, and the best you'll get is, "Don't stain the mosaic." What a strange and unsettling detail. This complete lack of empathy for suffering among the lower classes. Even upper-class Romans embraced pain as proof of virtue. Stoicism was the philosophy of the day. Enduring suffering without complaint was seen as noble. If you cried over a broken arm, you weren't just in pain, you were weak. Real Romans suffer silently, then write poetry about it later. Historians still debate the precise role of Stoicism in shaping Roman attitudes towards pain, but its influence on public perception is clear. So yes, pain is always on the table, and it usually comes without warning, without remedy, and definitely without sympathy. On that cheerful note, let's take a look at what happens when you actually go see a Roman doctor. You're already worn down, and the prospect of medical help might be more terrifying than the ailment itself. So you've hurt yourself. Maybe it was the infected blister from yesterday's work, or perhaps you tried to shave with a bronze blade and now your chin looks like a gladiator training ground. Either way, it's time to seek medical attention, which in ancient Rome is less about healing and more about surviving the attempt. Let's begin with the basics. Roman medicine is a chaotic mix of Greek theory, mystical guesswork, and a surprising amount of leaves. The core belief? The body is ruled by 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Feeling off? One of them is out of balance. The solution? Drain something. So your doctor, who may or may not also be your barber, immediately reaches for the leeches or a knife, because bloodletting is the default treatment for everything from migraines to moral failings. Have a cough? Let's open a vein. Depressed? We'll just drain some sadness out of your arm. Surgery? Oh yes, it exists. Roman surgeons had scalpels, forceps, and even bone drills. What they didn't have were anesthetics. You stay conscious through the whole procedure, gripping the edge of a wooden table, while a man in a dirty toga digs into your flesh with the confidence of someone who once saw a scroll about it. Antiseptics? Not really a thing. They might wash wounds with wine or vinegar, which does help, but also burns like divine punishment. Infection is a common side effect. So is death. Prescriptions vary wildly. You might be given honey, garlic, crushed beetles, or a poultice made of herbs, ash, and very specific types of animal dung. If things get worse, you're advised to sleep in a temple, pray to Asclepius, and hope divine dreams will deliver your cure. What a strange detail, relying on dream interpretation for medical advice. And if none of it works, well, your doctor shrugs, your family lights a candle, and your neighbors start whispering about what kind of omen your death might be. It's not that Romans didn't care about health. They just hadn't quite figured out what helped and what murdered you more efficiently. Historians still debate the true efficacy of Roman medical treatments, often noting that good hygiene and the body's natural healing capabilities were probably more effective than many of the interventions. So next time you sneeze, be grateful for modern antibiotics and that you don't live in a world where healing often starts with blood loss. You hobble away, feeling more vulnerable than ever, knowing that even seeking help carries its own set of risks. After a long day of sweating, bleeding, and dodging carts, you're starving. Time for dinner, or as the Romans called it, cena. Just don't expect anything remotely comforting. Let's start with what's not on the table. No pizza, no pasta, no tomatoes, no potatoes, no chocolate, no sugar, and absolutely no coffee. None of those things had been discovered or imported yet. This isn't Italian cuisine. This is pre-Italian edible survival. You sit down to a wooden bowl of something brown and vaguely hot. It's probably pulse, a porridge made of spelt, beans, or lentils. It tastes like wet gravel with a hint of herb, if you're lucky. If you're not lucky, it tastes like wet gravel without the herb. Protein is rare unless you caught it, trapped it, or fished it yourself. Meat is expensive, and even when you do get some, it's often off. Roman cooking didn't use refrigeration, so preservation meant heavy salting, smoking, or marinating it in. Garum, a fermented fish sauce that smells like dead ocean and burns your soul just thinking about it. Remember that delightful breakfast, garum? It's back. If you're feeling festive, there might be boiled vegetables, hard cheese, or the occasional fig. Rich Romans, on the other hand, dined on exotic dishes like roasted flamingo, stuffed dormice, or jellyfish in vinegar delicacies that mostly scream, "Look at how rich I am and how little I care about taste buds." What a strange culinary landscape where luxury often meant bizarre. Your wine is watered down, always. Drinking it straight is seen as barbaric. But don't worry, the water it's mixed with is probably questionable too, so you're just choosing how fast you want to get sick. Dessert? Maybe dried fruit? Maybe nuts? Or maybe you're fasting because it's a feast day honoring a god who frowns on gluttony. Either way, you're not ending the night with a tiramisu. There are no napkins. You wipe your hands on a cloth shared with 10 other people, or just use your tunic and pretend it's clean. By the end of the meal, your stomach is full but uneasy, and your breath smells like garlic, wine, and slight despair. But at least you're fed. Historians still debate the average lifespan of Romans and how much their diet played a role. But it's clear that nutrition was a constant struggle for many. Now all you have to do is survive the Roman nightlife, and trust me, that's not a relaxing stroll. After a long day of grime, toil, and fish sauce, you might be hoping for a little leisure, something to take your mind off your crumbling apartment and the open sewer outside. Well, good news. You're in Rome, where entertainment is everywhere. Bad news. Most of it is horrifying. Let's start with the main event, the Colosseum, the crown jewel of Roman engineering, and the place where your soul quietly dies. This is where crowds gather to watch men stab each other for sport, wild animals, devour criminals, and sometimes, if the emperor is feeling dramatic, reenact full naval battles with real water and real drowning. It's free to attend, which sounds generous until you realize it's free because the state wants you distracted while the Senate raises taxes and quietly annexes Armenia. You sit packed between sweaty strangers, cheering as a gladiator loses a limb. There's blood, sand, and occasional public executions with extra flair. You're clapping, you're not sure why. Feeling a little sensitive? Prefer theater? Head to the amphitheater for a Roman play. Maybe a tragedy written in Latin you barely understand, or a farce where the punchline involves someone pretending to defile Jupiter with a sausage. Subtlety is not the Roman strong suit. If you're feeling sporty, try the Circus Maximus. Chariot races are fast, thrilling, and regularly fatal. There are no guardrails, no helmets, and lots of shouting. Crashes are inevitable and spectacular, and the crowd loves it. They're here for the violence and the betting. Don't cheer for the wrong team unless you're ready to fight your way home. And then there's the street entertainment. Fire breathers, acrobats, musicians, con artists, and the occasional philosophical rant from a barefoot man with nothing to lose. If you don't like the show, wait 5 minutes. Something else or someone else will start yelling. It's a strange detail, this constant, almost desperate need for spectacle. But behind all of it, there's a strange, brilliant madness. Rome didn't just distract its people, it dazzled them into forgetting how brutal daily life was. It weaponized spectacle. Historians still debate the extent to which these public games served as a tool for social control, but their ability to divert attention from political discontent is undeniable. And if that doesn't numb you enough, there's always more wine. You leave feeling a mix of exhilaration and deep unease, the echoes of the crowd's roar still in your ears. You've survived work, dinner, and a gladiator getting impaled for applause. You might think you're safe now, that as long as you keep your head down, the law will protect you. Ah, that's adorable. In Rome, the law doesn't protect. It reminds you that you're small, replaceable, and that mercy is a luxury reserved for statues of emperors. First off, legal status matters. If you're a citizen, you have rights in theory. You can't be flogged in public unless someone important gets really annoyed and you get a proper trial. If you're a non-citizen, justice comes in the form of a fist, a branding iron, or a swift execution outside the city gates. Slaves, they're property. If a slave murders their master, even if the master deserved it, every slave in the household might be executed just to send a message. That message, don't even think about it. What a strange detail, this collective punishment for individual actions. If you're accused of a crime, don't expect a calm chat with a lawyer. Trials are public theater. The wealthier party brings witnesses, bribes, and dramatic gestures. You bring your tunic and a sinking feeling. If you cry on cue, that might help. If you have no patrons, pray to Jupiter and hope the magistrate isn't hung over. Punishments are designed not just to hurt, but to deter. Thieves can be branded or have their hands broken. Liars might get their tongue pierced. Fraud, public flogging, or exile, if you're lucky. And if you insult the emperor, it's not jail time. It's death, usually creative. Some crimes require public punishment, ideally in front of a crowd that cheers louder than they did for the morning's beheading. Crucifixion is popular, long, slow, humiliating. It isn't reserved just for Jesus. It's the go-to for rebels, robbers, and anyone the state wants to make an example of. And remember, law enforcement isn't there to help. The vigils are Rome's version of firefighters, and police underpaid, overworked, and often corrupt. If you're mugged, they might shrug. If you bribe them, they might help you mug someone else. Historians still debate the true effectiveness of the vigils in maintaining public order, but their limited resources and vast responsibilities made their task incredibly difficult. So yes, Rome has laws, written in stone, recited in forums, but they serve power, not justice. You learn quickly to walk a very careful line. After surviving the streets and dodging Roman justice, you may hope to find comfort in religion. A little peace, a little personal spirituality? Nope, not here. In the Roman Empire, religion isn't a private affair. It's an institution, an ever-present cloud of incense, an obligation wrapped around every waking moment of your life. You don't choose your gods, they choose you, and there are so many. There's a god for everything. Door hinges, cardea, sewers, cloacina, boundaries, terminus, and even mildew, robigus. You can't walk 5 paces without crossing a shrine. If you don't pause to bow, light a candle, or mutter a prayer, you're not just being rude. You're inviting catastrophe. Maybe not today, but eventually. And when your roof collapses, everyone will nod and say, "Ah yes, he skipped the Saturnalia offering." Religious festivals fill the calendar, dozens per year. On those days, business stops, animals are sacrificed, and the air smells like roasting bull and wet marble. You attend out of piety, but also fear, because if the gods aren't honored properly, they'll retaliate with plagues, droughts, or a really bad harvest that ruins everyone's lentil supply. Now, let's talk about emperor worship. The state wants you to revere the emperor not just as a ruler, but as a living god. You're expected to offer incense at his altar, sing his praises, and never, never roll your eyes during a triumphal procession. That's treason adjacent. If you're caught not participating in public worship, say you're a little too quiet during the Vestalia, or you don't show up to toss grain into the temple flame, you could be labeled impious, atheistic, or worst of all, suspicious. Suspicion in Rome is like blood in shark-infested waters. And if you're part of a foreign cult, you'd better keep that under wraps, unless it's officially approved. The state doesn't like unfamiliar gods, unless they bring wine, taxes, or new soldiers. What a strange detail. How deeply interwoven faith and state control truly were. Roman religion isn't about belief. It's about ritual. You don't have to feel it. You just have to do it correctly, on time, and in public. And you better smile while you sacrifice that goat. Historians still debate the true level of personal faith versus civic duty in Roman religious practice. But the public performance was paramount. You walk away from these rituals feeling less enlightened and more burdened, another layer of obligation added to your already difficult life. You've bowed to the gods, avoided a lawsuit, and survived a public bath without contracting something mythical. But here comes the most exhausting part of Roman life. The social hierarchy, a brutal, finely tuned machine where every word, gesture, and sandal strap placement could make or break you. Roman society is a ladder, but it's covered in oil and lined with daggers. At the top are the senators, old money, togas with purple stripes, and land ownership so vast it has its own postal code. Below them, the equestrians, the wealthy business class. Then come the plebeians like you, the struggling middle and lower classes. Below that, freedmen, slaves, foreigners, and the guy who accidentally insulted a statue of Augustus once. Want to move up? You'll need patrons, powerful individuals who protect you in exchange for lifelong loyalty, errands, favors, and the occasional vote. It's like having a boss, godfather, and landlord rolled into one charmingly condescending package. Each morning, you visit your patron's home as part of the salutatio. You wait in line with other clients, praise his haircut, maybe compliment his son's toga, then beg for a favor, usually money, food, or a recommendation. If you're lucky, he tosses you a coin and lets you carry his litter through the forum. Congratulations, you're now connected. Every move you make is watched and judged. Your clothes must be clean, not fashionable, just clean. Your speech must be proper. Your friends carefully selected. And whatever you do, don't show ambition that makes people nervous. If you rise too quickly, others will conspire to knock you back down, socially or literally. Networking is warfare. Gossip is currency. The wrong comment at a banquet can end your career. The right marriage can save your entire bloodline. But you better play it carefully. Love is for poets. The rest of Rome marries for alliances and estate access. And even if you climb high, don't get too comfortable. One bad harvest, one missed ritual, one jealous rival, and it's all over. You won't even hear the dagger coming. Historians still debate the true social mobility within the Roman Empire, but it's clear that upward movement was difficult and precarious. It's a strange detail, this constant performance of humility and deference, even for those with aspirations. You're always on guard, always aware of who is above you and who might trip you. Now the sun is setting. Surely things calm down at night, right? The sun dips below the rooftops of Rome, and for a fleeting moment, you think, maybe now, finally, you can rest. But nightfall in the Roman Empire isn't a time for peace. It's a shift in tone from noisy and chaotic to dark and downright lethal. First, let's talk about lighting. There isn't any, unless you're rich enough to burn oil lamps all night. And few are. Most people rely on moonlight, memory, and blind hope to find their way through the labyrinthine alleys of the city. If you trip and fall, no one's helping. They might just take your shoes. The vigils, Rome's official night watchmen, are supposed to patrol the streets, prevent fires, and stop crimes. In practice, they're overworked, underpaid, and often more interested in napping than heroics. Some are brave, most are bribable, and all of them are outnumbered. Criminals know this. Thieves, muggers, and the occasional bored ex-gladiator roam the shadows looking for easy marks. If you're walking home alone, you're the easy mark. It doesn't matter who you are, unless you're armed, fast, or invisible, you're at risk. And then there's fire, Rome's greatest nighttime terror. Insulae, those charming death trap apartments you sleep in, are made of wood and dreams. Cooking after dark is illegal for this reason, But laws mean little to a hungry tenant. A single overturned lamp can reduce an entire block to ash in hours. The Great Fire of 64 CE didn't start itself, but once it did, it raged like Mars in a bad mood. You might think your building is safe until you smell smoke at midnight and realize there's no organized evacuation plan. You grab your one tunic, your chamber pot, and maybe your dignity, and sprint for your life down a collapsing staircase. It's a strange detail that despite the constant threat, organized emergency services were almost non-existent. And if it's not fire or thieves, it's noise. Drunken parties echo through the streets. Processions for obscure gods parade by with drums and shouting. And if a senator's mistress is upset, everyone within a 3-block radius knows. Sleep in ancient Rome is a luxury. Silence is a myth. And safety, that's reserved for the wealthy, the armed, and the extraordinarily lucky. Historians still debate the efficacy of Roman urban planning given the prevalence of fires and crime, but it's clear the average citizen lived in constant peril. But hey, morning's almost here. You just have to survive one more night and then repeat. The sun sets on Rome, and with it, you might expect a moment of calm, a breeze, a quiet meal, maybe even sleep. Think again. Rome doesn't go silent at night. It simply shifts into something darker, louder, and more dangerous. The city never truly sleeps. It prowls. Let's start with fire. Roman buildings, especially the tall, wooden insulae, where the poor live, are tinderboxes waiting for a careless oil lamp or cooking fire to turn them into ash. There's no real fire department, just the vigiles who are part firefighter, part night watch, part deeply underpaid janitor. They carry buckets and hope. If your apartment catches fire, you might be rescued, or you might become a cautionary tale in tomorrow's gossip. Then there are the thieves, cut purses, and pickpockets, who treat the moonlight like a hunting license. Rome's alleys are narrow and unlit. Torches are expensive. If you must walk after dark, you're doing so by feel, by instinct, and hopefully not by yourself. Don't carry anything shiny, don't make eye contact, and whatever you do, don't get caught between two drunken gladiators arguing about someone's missing sandal. Speaking of drunk, the city's nightlife is booming. Taverns spill over with cheap wine, loud music, and men shouting bad poetry about Mars and women they'll never impress. Fights break out, dice games end in blood, and sometimes an angry noble decides to settle a grudge by having a slave beat someone in the street. You hide in the shadows and pretend you didn't see anything. If you're a woman walking alone, good luck. Rome is not kind to unchaperoned females after dark. The streets belong to the desperate, the reckless, and the dangerously bored. It's a strange detail how much of Roman life embraced public disorder after dark. Trying to sleep isn't much better. Your insula creaks like it's thinking about collapsing. Rats scurry through the walls. Your neighbor coughs like a dying goat. Somewhere nearby, someone is screaming either from passion, murder, or both. You press your face to a sweaty pillow and pray to Mercury for silence. But there is no silence in Rome. Not for you, because in the Roman Empire, even the darkness is loud. And when dawn comes, you'll have to do it all again. Historians still debate the long-term psychological impact of such a constantly vigilant existence on the Roman populace. You've just experienced a single day and night. You woke up in a crumbling insula, survived public toilets chariot traffic, gladiator gore, lead poisoning, leeches, religious festivals, burning rooftops, and half-cooked lentils soaked in fermented fish sauce. You bowed to gods you don't understand, obeyed laws that don't protect you, and slept through riots, rats, and the occasional public decapitation. You're dirty, tired, possibly infected, and emotionally scarred by the communal sponge. And it's only been one day. Would you last another? Honestly, no, you wouldn't. Most modern humans, with our air conditioning, antibiotics, and 5-minute delivery windows, would crumble by lunchtime. You'd give up before the second round of garum. And yet, the Romans did it for centuries. Because here's the maddening, magnificent thing. In the middle of all this filth, brutality, and noise, Rome worked. Somehow, they built cities, roads, aqueducts, libraries, temples, and amphitheaters. They expanded their empire across continents. They administered laws, developed philosophy, mapped the stars, performed surgeries, and invented concrete that still holds up better than most modern buildings. They created systems that shaped Europe and beyond for 2,000 years. Latin became the root of half the languages you hear today. Their architecture inspired cathedrals, parliaments, and college campuses. Their political concepts, republics, senates, veto power, still echo through modern democracies. But it came at a cost. For the average Roman, not the emperors, not the marble-bathed elite, daily life was a hard-fought grind. And yet, they endured. They adapted. They didn't have a choice, because Rome wasn't made of gold. It was made of sweat, fear, ambition, and survival layer by layer, person by person, century by bloody century. And that's why it lasted. You'd be begging to go back to modern plumbing and antihistamines by mid-afternoon. You'd trade your entire denarii pouch for a hot shower and a chair with a back on it. And that's okay. You don't need to survive ancient Rome. You just need to understand it. And maybe, just maybe, appreciate that someone, somewhere, once walked those same filthy streets and helped build the empire so you could sit here today, clean, safe, and mildly horrified. So next time you tuck into your clean, comfortable bed with the silence of your home around you and the promise of undisturbed sleep, just remember what countless generations before you endured. Remember the cold stone, the ceaseless noise, the ever-present threat of fire and disease. Let the warmth of your blanket be a silent thank you to all those who built civilizations despite the overwhelming odds, allowing us the luxury of rest we now take for granted. Good night.